organization's knowledge or competencies that form the HR body of competency. And this gives employers the assurance that they have the foundational HR knowledge and compliance knowledge to give to provide companies with the support that they need. So it's heartening to note that since we have launched this new certified associate level in October last year, we have grown this community to almost 400. It would have been more if not for the circuit breaker, where we could not conduct assessments. So we have over 200 more candidates waiting in the wings. So I think this is certainly very heartening, because it shows that this level has a lot of interest, particularly with junior HR professionals and even HR students who are just about completing their final year of studies before they join the workforce. The other kind of community that we are reaching out to is also HR professionals who are in smaller companies. Because in smaller companies, many of you may not have the breadth of experience that some of the larger companies professionals may have. But nevertheless, I think starting at the associates level gives you a good stepping stone in order to progress your career going forward. So we look forward to having more HR professionals from the SMEs to join us at this associate level. Now, our associates will be part of the over 2,000 HR professionals that we currently have in the IHRP community. And all our associates will be developed to attain the IHRP certified professional level within, say, a period of 18 months to 2 years. Now, in this current situation that we find ourselves, it has never been more important to have the support of a community to encourage and guide you in your developmental journey. Now, with the pandemic raging on, it's very clear that the old ways of doing things will no longer work. You will need to continually learn, not just learn from trainers, from training, but also learn from each other, and to keep abreast of some of the emerging skills and competencies that we see in HR, such as the use of technology, people analytics, organizational change management, and implementing agile teams and ways of working. Now, these emerging areas will play a key role in any organization's future growth and success. And I encourage you to get better at these areas and find opportunities to develop your skills in some of these areas as well. Now, our partner today is a household name and a market leader in HR management technology, SAP SuccessFactors. We are proud and honored to have Renata, one of our newest IHRP master professionals, to share not only on HR in SAP, but also how aspiring HR professionals like yourselves can seize the opportunities that are out there to display the vital competencies and future skills that business leaders are looking for. And so now, without further ado, I would like to call upon Renata to commence her presentation. So over to you, Renata.
So good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of this webinar and to have the opportunity to share with you the evolution of human resources at SAP, and also about my own professional journey over the many years that I have been in the corporate world. But before we start, I would like to thank Mayank and his team from the Institute of Human Resources Professionals here in Singapore for the invitation to be with you today and to contribute with our human resources community in the country. It's an absolute honor and pleasure, Mayank, to be here. My name is Renata, and I work for SAP. I head the Global Early Talent Attraction Organization. And for those of you who are not familiar with SAP, SAP is a market leader in end-to-end enterprise application software, database analytics, intelligent technologies, and experience management. And we help businesses of all sizes and in all industries to operate more effectively and more profitably, and to continuously evolve their strategy and execution successfully. So I lead a group of people who are very passionate about making SAP the place where career starters can thrive and make a difference in this world. And we attract and recruit thousands of talents a year, from students to graduates, into development field and corporate functions in more than 100 countries where SAP is present. I am also an active member of professional groups such as the Institute of Human Resources Professionals here in Singapore, and I am much involved in discussions in public and private work groups about the future of work and workforce trends. I've been in the corporate world for more than 30 years, and quite frankly, over these many years, I have never ceased to learn. I am originally from Brazil and started my career helping executives to learn a second language. And that sparked in me a passion for learning and development very early on in the career. And I have invested many years of my professional journey in talent development before moving into a more generalist role as a HR business partner and regional leader here in Asia, and now into a global role leading a recruiting organization. And along these many years, I have seen, I have been part of, I have led significant changes in the companies that I have worked for. I worked for American and European companies at different stages of their life cycle, in different moments of their own transformation in different parts of the world. And as a learner myself, I have found that the ability to adapt, the willingness to understand the bigger picture, and the ability to connect dots and be agile do play a very important role in anyone's career. And these are learnings that I bring to a hobby that I have. And the hobby is trekking mountains. And hopefully you can see a picture there of one of my hikes. So the resilience, the care for others, the planning and preparation that trekking requires are very precious learnings that I transfer to my professional life, without a doubt. So whenever I am preparing myself to go on a hike, I ask myself many questions about that climb. And some of the questions are related to my own readiness, about my trekking gear, my fitness level, so everything related to myself. But there are some other questions that I ask myself as well that are related to external factors, factors that not necessarily I have control over, such as the details of the trail, the weather conditions, ground operators, rescue team in case we need to utilize them. Moving on to the next slide, there is definitely a very strong parallel here. Because when we design a strategy for HR, we also ask about internal and external factors and define a journey that will fundamentally support the execution of the overall business strategy. So just as in any other area of the business, human resources does help bring this strategy of a company to life. So this is something we can never lose sight of. And let me repeat that. Human resources helps to bring the strategy of a company to life. So let's take a look at the journey of human resources at SAP for a second here. So for many years, SAP had a decentralized human resources area, which then transitioned to a three-pillar model with global organizations in each pillar. So this three-pillar model might be something that some of you have already read about or are familiar, because this is a model that is very commonly used and seen in companies all over the world. With the acquisition of SuccessFactors into the SAP portfolio, HR transitioned HR services to the cloud and defined a very clear employee segmentation as a consumer target. And the guiding principles for human resources became simplification, standardization, and customer satisfaction, with the consumer of such HR services in the center of everything that we did. Most recently, we have evolved in the journey again to align operational excellence with the high levels of consumer experience. So this is where we meet that excellence in everything that we do. But at the same time, we are also perceived, or we aspire to be perceived very positively by our consumers. So you deliver what you have to deliver, but you're also perceived as delivering good results and good services. And by consumers, we mean in SAP, the candidates, employees, managers, executives, and alumni. So what that means is considering as a group of consumers, not only the talent that is in SAP today, but also considering the talent that we want to hire into SAP, and also the talent that has already left SAP, but continues to be part of the ecosystem. Because we can always either bring them back or have them as friends of SAP, as they are working for partners, they're working for our customers, they are, for example, in universities advocating for the brand. So you look at the talent segments from a holistic perspective. You look at those that are that we want to bring into the organization, those that are in the organization, and those who have left the organization but are in the ecosystem. So moving on to the next slide. Here you have a representation of the adoption of the cloud technology in many areas of human resources. So not only we have adopted SuccessFactors at scale in the company, and today we have over 100,000 employees across the world, but we have also been able to innovate by leveraging other key solutions in the SAP portfolio. So I'll give you an example. Today we're able to offer agile services in standard platforms to all employees in the world. So regardless the country where they work, or the stage that they are with their engagement with SAP. We're able to offer thousands and thousands of learning opportunities to our employees, to run compensation cycles to the entire employee population in just a few days, to offer short response time to queries about basically any HR operational topic via chatbots, to have real-time data about employees at the tip of our fingers, and a lot more. So technology has really helped us be able to achieve this state, but the mindset of having the consumer center in front of everything that we do and use those guiding principles have allowed us to get to this stage. And one thing that I want to say is that this is an evolution, and as an evolution, as a journey, it hasn't ended yet. There's still more to come. So we are always challenging ourselves, always thinking, rethinking, redesigning to ensure that we evolved as demanded by internal and external factors. So all this actually what does is that it helps people to have better insights about the business and consequently make more agile and educated decisions. So moving on to the next slide, as I mentioned earlier, external factors do play an extremely important role when defining a strategy for HR. So on this slide, you can see a few trends in areas such as economy, environment, politics, society, technology that we take into account as we think about the future of HR in SAP. So it's not only looking internally at our technology or systems or designs or processes, but it is also looking externally to what's happening around the world, so we are up to speed and meeting the needs of a constantly evolving market where we operate. So in human resources today, we aspire to lead with a purpose-driven employee value proposition. That's very important. We also aspire to augment human performance with new technologies and innovation, to address employee expectation of individualized engagement. And that's a very important one because we all know as consumers of technology or consumers of any product or service nowadays that we want that special treatment. We want to have individualized services. So that has to be counted in our strategy design. We aspire to empathize, empathize, and emphasize as well human connection, transparency, and fairness. And architect global and agile working models. That is very important. The structure, the traditional structure as we used to know many years ago might not be as relevant, or it might not be as agile today to help us meet the needs of a changing workforce. So we do need to think about this agility in the working models as well. So this strategy focus actually will drive the design of practices, and this is very important. So you have the strategic focus, and that focus helps drive the design of practices in all different areas of human resources in SAP now and in the future. What that also means is that our HR professionals are already required to display a few fundamental skills that Mayank was mentioning at the beginning. For example, we are all, and I mean in different levels of the organization, we are all as HR professionals called to display the ability to think from a consumer point of view and to champion an experience mindset for all the consumer interactions that we have. And remember, the consumer are those 5 different segments that I mentioned earlier. We are also called to display an ability to use analytics to solve complex business problems and to support decision making. We are required to apply the knowledge about the technology trends and SAP solutions and integrate in HR processes, definitely. And I think one that is very near and dear to my heart and potentially will resonate with you is the ability to be agile in everything that we do. So moving on to the next slide, I will show you an example of what being agile is and what it means to SAP. So here's a good example, right? You just think of the current situation that we are all in today. And in light of the extraordinarily challenging times that we are living, our colleagues in HR had to quickly come together with colleagues from IT, from legal, from finance, from sales, from security, etc., to form a global pandemic task force to guide thousands of employees over more than 100 countries where we are where we operate. So you just think for a minute about all the details that must be considered in a situation like that. All the details that have to be carefully articulated, they have to be clearly communicated, so all the employees, the contractors, the vendors that interact in this ecosystem are safe, the operations are compliant with local laws, the business is still carried forward because we still need to deliver business results, and the health and wellness of everyone is preserved. So just for a minute, just stop and think about the complexity that is behind the scenes when we have to act very diligently and in a very agile way. And the recruitment area, for example, we had to quickly adjust to having 100% of the interviews conducted in a virtual environment. And we were not doing that before, but it had to be quickly done. And we did it at the beginning of the pandemic. And yet, when you move everything to virtual, people still expect the same level of quality, the same level of confidentiality that candidates and hiring managers would experiment in an in-person interview. So in HR, we are challenged to quickly reassess the ways that people stay connected, stay informed, safe, healthy, productive, the way that people are engaged, the way that people continue to grow and development in a very much different environment and in record time. So the agility in moments like that is extremely important because you're dealing with lives, you're dealing with businesses, and you need to be able to understand the pain points, understand what the capabilities are, what the capacity is, and react quickly. So this is no small task, and it is not the work of one person. It is the work of a group of people, a group of experts that get together. So I'm sure that you can appreciate what goes on behind the scenes. So moving on to the next slide, when I look back at all these years in the corporate world, and I mentioned 30 years at the beginning of this webinar, and I stop and reflect, and I've been doing a lot of this, I have to confess, during this times that we're living in. I asked myself, what are some of the key learnings that have helped me grow and develop in my career? And I wanted to share a few of them. And I hope some of them will resonate with you. And maybe it's not all that will resonate with you, but I'm hoping that at least one can give you some insights. So the first one is always put yourself in the shoes of others. So each person you will interact with, and you will interact with many people, has his or her own motivations, aspirations, expectations, and goals. And you need to be able to see the world from their perspective to be able to reach, and this is very important, a mutually beneficial solution for the problem that you're trying to solve. So putting yourself in the shoes of others will give you that advantage because you're looking at the world from their lenses, or at least you're making an attempt to look at the world from their lenses. The second one is always think of the bigger picture. Ask yourself how the activities that you're performing or you plan for are contributing to the execution of the business strategy. We need to understand the overall purpose of a business to be able to see beyond the task that you have in front of you. That will give you a sense of purpose because you're contributing to a greater cause. And you're not only focused on one specific task that you have at hand, right? That gives you purpose, that gives you the opportunity to engage more and to understand the bigger picture. Now, it's equally important that you help people connect to the dots. And that is my third bullet there. You may potentially have more information than others in certain areas, and helping people connect to the dots, help them see the big picture as well, or this bigger picture as well that I was mentioning. And by doing that, it's going to be great because you're going to experience, and I hope you remember when you have one of these moments, but you're going to experience many aha moments when you do so. When you help people to understand the bigger picture. And these aha moments will actually help you when you need to have approvals or to gain buy-in from leaders for a project that you might be leading. So looking at understanding the bigger picture, helping people connect the dots, helping people also look at the bigger picture sets a very good foundation for you to be able to move on with the projects that you intend to move on with. The fourth one, and that is possibly the most important thing for me that I have learned along these many years, is to be open to learn. And Mayank also mentioned that at the beginning. Every opportunity is an opportunity to acquire a new skill. It is an opportunity to learn from someone's experience, to try something new, to reflect on what you could have done differently. I'll be very honest with you, I never depended on a manager to drive my learning or development plan. That never happened. I've always been self-driven in regards to my own learning and development. And I've always been able and willing to be open and to experiment with new things. And for me, this is extremely critical. That shows that learning agility as well, if you may. That will get you far. So open mind, trying to learn, identify things that will contribute, always a good thing to do. The fifth one, extremely important as well, keep your promises. So planning is very important, but let me tell you something, disciplined execution is key. So delivering on your promises will help you build your brand along the way, and that will accompany you for many years. So you gotta be able to keep your promises. You plan, but you deliver. You plan and you execute. And especially when you are in a leadership role, that will be extremely important. So the ability to keep your promises, to execute is to think bigger picture, but execute and deliver is key as well. And last but not least, I wanted to put this in here because this is a non-negotiable. No matter where you work, no matter the job title that you have, no matter where you are in the hierarchy of things, you never, ever compromise on integrity and respect for others. You will be remembered for the respect that you show to others. So these are a few of my learnings along my journey. And again, I've been reflecting a lot on these learnings. And this is a great opportunity for me to do this reflection once again, to revisit some of these pointers and remind myself that I should always apply that in everything that I do. So just before I wrap up and hand over to Gloria, if we can go to the next slide, please, I would like to leave you with a few things. The first is a list of sources that will be incredibly important for you when accessing information about megatrends. So what's happening in HR, what's happening in the market, in the future of work, in the future of the workforce. So all these are links that are going to be in the material that will be distributed to you. And hopefully it is material that you are going to enjoy reading and you're going to get lots of insights from. The other thing that I'd like to leave you with, and if we can go to the next slide, are two invitations from SAP. The first one is to join us on a course called Introduction to Human Experience Management, where you will learn how human experience management helps develop companies to be high performing and to be agile. And it also helps you understand how employee experience helps leadership decisions that create better business outcomes. So this is a free of charge course. It is open. It has gone live on May 26th. It's open to all of you. The only thing is, if you'd like to take the assessment, a portion of the course, and you do it after June 30th, then there will be a nominal charge for that. So if you're interested, it is beginning of June. I would encourage you to take the course, take the assessment portion, and then it's free of charge for you. The second invite is in the next slide. It is a session that is going to happen on June 18th with my own team. These are recruiters in SAP, and they will be talking about how to apply successfully to opportunities in companies like SAP. And we understand that these have been difficult times for everyone, students and graduates. And they might have questions about future opportunities and what these future opportunities are looking like today. So this session, AMA stands for Ask Me Anything, is a session that will give you the chance to ask our own recruiters directly about these topics or others that you might have in your mind. It is a little bit late for us here in Singapore, but again, I hope you can attend and enjoy the conversation with our recruiters. So this is open to everyone here. I will be super happy to see you there. So last slide, and closing, I would like once again to thank the team here for the opportunity to be with you. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be sharing the journey of SAP and my own journey as well. I'm incredibly privileged to have this chance here and to be in front of you. And I really hope that this content is relevant for you now in the future. And I do wish you a very, very successful journey ahead. So Gloria, over to you, please, with the questions that we might have from the participants at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Renata, for that very insightful sharing. I'd just like to check if anyone from the audience would have any questions that you'd like to ask. Okay, seems like we have a few here. Okay, Hadria, as a student studying to get a diploma, what are the next steps that we can take in order to benefit us or learn more skills needed for the future working environment?
Is that a question for me or a question for Mayank as the portfolio of the Institute?
Both of you could share your insights.
Okay, so Mayank, I'll just go first. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that there are a few things that you can do. Definitely courses are very important. And if you are familiar with the 70-20-10 framework that is so vastly used when it comes to development or talking about development, so you'll see that courses and certifications are part of this development journey. There are other things that you can do as well, which are more related to peer learning or more related to experiential learning as well, that are incredibly important for you. So as a personal or a private experience that I can share, I think it is fundamentally important that you get the right theoretical learning. You have you learn about the some elements that are in courses, like the history, or the how we have been doing things and the why we have been doing things. There are some fundamentals that everyone has to have. And it's equally important that you have this experiential portion as well in your development plan. So look for those who can guide you with their experience, look for projects that you can engage in. And again, if you have that open mindset about how learning can be part of your life in whatever you do, every day you're learning, then you're going to be a big sponge, and all these different elements will make a tremendous difference in your plan, your development plan.
Yeah, so very good. Yeah, I agree completely that learning is not just in the classroom. There's so much to learn from each other, so much to learn from our experiences, engaging with each other with projects. And this future world of work is going to be very exciting for all of us, because there's so much that's going to be new. and, and really we need to kind of focus then, in addition to the knowledge that we can get, we need to focus on skills and competencies, because the things that we've done before may not be relevant any longer. So we need to kind of continue to acquire new skills, new sets of competencies, and try to kind of understand how those skills can continue to apply in the context that you find yourself in, whichever company you're in. You know, one of the things that sometimes students ask me is, you know, I'm doing a diploma. Is it necessary that I get a degree, that I get a university degree? Is that something that I should be aspiring to? And I would say it all depends. It all depends, because it depends on what you're looking for, what you're aspiring to, what your passions are. And if you are, certainly if you are looking for a role which is focused significantly in terms of you know, understanding more about the the research, the psychology behind interactions within companies, within people, across groups, and so on, then certainly I think something like a degree would help to deepen very much your knowledge base, and understand clearly some of the research methodologies that you will need to be familiar with. On the other hand, if you are focused much more on being a practitioner, then I would say, you know, then perhaps a diploma would be something that would be a lot more practical for you, something that you already then will develop the core skills, the core competencies that, and then what you need to do then is to just polish these up at the workplace. So it's really a question of what you're looking for, and I get an opportunity to meet young talents, whether they are from the polytechnics or from the universities, and I'm always amazed, you know, that it is certainly I think there's a rich source of talent coming out from our educational institutions. You know, the millennials, if you like, are certainly very well exposed, very inquisitive, very eager to learn, and very quick to learn. I think this is kind of the environment that you grew up in, and it's an opportunity then to build upon those skills, because these are certainly the skills that organizations will be looking for going forward. So I hope that gives a perspective to you as well.
Thank you, Renata, and thank you, Maya, for the very insightful sharing on how you can actually take the next steps to better yourself and benefit yourself in the HR working environment. We do have another question. This is from ZQ. In today's business world, we have a lot of emphasis on the usage of data. What's your take on the future of the use of data and analytics in the HR field? And what are some of the concrete steps that you would recommend for me or us taking as that they are beginners in the HR field, assuming we already have some analytics background? Yeah.
Look, I think data is incredibly important, and with the capability that we're building systems today, I don't see any way that this is going to lose importance. What data helps us do here is to understand the picture, is to have insights, to be able to design solutions, for example, for the problems that we see in a more effective way, and to tackle these problems with a better use of resources, with a better cover of what is really expected. So you're actually closing the gap between delivery and expectation. So data is very, very important for us to be able to be certain, to be precise, to have a more laser focus on what we are going to deliver as solutions or what we're building as practices to enable the execution of a strategy. Sometimes I also acknowledge that not everyone is going to be involved directly with the treatment of data or the design of systems or the design of dashboards. We understand that in certain areas of HR, you do not have this access directly to this kind of work. But we do have access to one thing. We do have access to numbers, and we do have access to people. And if you understand the numbers and you're able to tell a story that people will understand, you are able to impact the way that things are going to be understood, the way that the things are going to be interpreted, and the next steps ahead, again, towards the business outcomes that are needed. So each one here has an ability to understand what the data is saying, interpret that, and again, back to one of my learnings, connect the dots, telling the proper story around that, right? And using that critical thinking to ask more questions and to see where exactly action is needed. So I think it's absolutely critical that we understand the numbers, that we have very specific analytics behind it. It's important that we understand the sentiment as well. So that's why experience management is so critical, so that we can close the gaps between what people expect and what we think that we are actually delivering.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think it's not just in HR. The use of data analytics is going to be huge for all professions, for all fields, and but so HR cannot be left behind. And I think this is something we are working very hard at the institute to ensure that it is built into a body of competency. So regardless of whether you a specialist in comm and band, learning and development, business partnering. Your ability to analyze data, understand, and tell a story, as Renata said, is critical going forward. And we will embed this competency in our body of competencies going forward. One of the ways that we are trying to help is that I'm sure many of you already would have come across projects in your companies or even during your internships, right? Where you're given a bunch of numbers, and you're asked to kind of figure it out. And I think that's an excellent way to kind of develop some of those skills. To understand those numbers, you may need to cleanse the data. You may need to organize it in a way. You may need to kind of get better at some of the statistical approaches to understanding what that data tells you. And I think in that way, this is how you learn. And never be afraid to ask. Never be afraid to reach out to. There may be someone within your organization or someone you know that is that's very good at manipulating data, and that's what they do day in and day out. So never be afraid to reach out and ask, because that's kind of really important, to be curious, to kind of reach out to someone else. And what we will provide is we'll provide you with a skills badge, and this is something we are launching in the middle of the year. A skills badge on a range of emerging skills, including people analytics. And so if you are able to provide us evidence of this project that you've done for your company and how this project has benefited the company in terms of providing some very valuable insights, help the company make good decisions, then we'll be very happy to kind of provide you with a badge, a digital badge that you can display on your LinkedIn profile, you can display on your resume, and it's something that I'm sure employers going forward will be looking out for actively going forward. So yeah, I think it's something all of us need to get better at, and certainly something that we all can find opportunities to get better at it as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Renata and Maya. Okay, we do have a few more questions. We have one question from Sini. Understand that being agile is key to HR professionals in our realm of work. Could you please help us understand your tips to be agile?
Sure. Look, I think it relates back to that learning piece that I was referring to, right? So just think of something here, just for a minute. If you continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, you're probably going to be a phenomenal expert in that one thing that you have been doing. Now, if you allow yourself to potentially test and try and experience with other things, what you're doing is you're creating the ability to have this toolbox with many skills, many tools. And every time that you move from stage A to B to C to D, you're adding more tools in this toolbox, right? You're learning more skills, you're making more connections, you're meeting more people that are going to be part of your network. And then what happens is you're not getting super specialized in that one thing that you have been doing and doing very well for a long time. Now you can actually have more flexibility to move around. Now, not only that, it potentially may be that you're not, from a career perspective, moving around because you might be just participating in different projects. But what that gives you is a broader view and perspective of things. So when you're challenged with a situation that is unknown, right? When you are in a situation where you have uncontrollables, what happens is that you can open this toolbox and you can say, I've already experienced that, or part of that, or something that resembles that in the past. I've already been through a challenging situation. I know how I react. I know what connections I have to make. Or if I don't know the names, I know that I would have to contact this profile and this profile. So that gives you the ability to not focus on one specific solution for a problem, but to have more than one solution. You become more flexible. You're able to move around because you know the field a little bit better. And that is very, very important. And that will help us, help myself, and it does till today, but help you as well, add that agility that is needed when a problem is potentially a problem that you don't know so much about is in front of you, because you have added so many different diverse and important skills to your toolbox, and they're all transferable, by the way, from one situation to another, that you're able to quickly flex up and adapt. And adaptation is one of the most important things that we have today to display, right? Nobody could ever predict that we would be in a situation that we are today back in January. We knew that things were happening. Maybe some had a little bit of an insight end of December, but not at this scale that we have experienced. And yet in less than 6 months, here we are working in a different way, connecting with people differently, having to reinvent ourselves, and all these different tools that you have acquired along the way, they are needed at this time in a situation like that. You always pull out something and say, okay, I can, I, I can do it. I got this, because I know how to react to certain things that potentially have a similar um, or characteristic or something that I can identify with. So agility comes from there. So in my view, it is your ability to be in tune with different things, your ability to be open, to move around, to learn, so that you enrich this toolbox and you're able then to move more, more in a more speedy way.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we did do a survey on companies. This was before COVID, in terms of how the HR operating model is evolving, and this is one of the things that came up, right? That so the operating model that we know of, it's around centers of excellence, right? So HR departments organize themselves around compensation areas, learning and development areas, and they have specialists in those areas. And then they have the business partners interacting with their client groups. So in that operating model, what we were interested to understand was how is technology changing that going forward? The new ways of working, how is that changing the operating model? And the indications that came back with the research is that certainly I think we will still require deep expertise in some of the specialist areas, but at the same time it's going to be a lot more horizontal skills, which Renata talked about, the agile skills. So more and more companies are organizing their work around agile teams. So they're putting together specialists from different parts of the organization very quickly to work on a problem. And once that is done, disband the team and then move on to something else. And that's kind of the way forward for many organizations. Certainly, I think COVID is not going to change that very much. In fact, I think COVID is just going to accelerate that shift into more agile ways of working and agile teams. So certainly, I think for HR professionals in our kind of work, our ability to be part of that transition, to be part of being more agile in your thinking, know your stuff, know your base your fundamental knowledge, know what you can deliver, to the team, but at the same time be open, be flexible, be in a position to kind of be as flexible and agile as possible in terms of how some of the solutions, the HR solutions, can be delivered in a new context, right? So I think that's kind of how I would see the development of this uh, operating model for HR going forward. And agile is a big thing now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you. We'll just do one last question before we end this webinar. This question is from Joyce Yap. What makes a competent HR leader? How do you tell among a pool of candidates, particularly youth, who possess the potential to be one?
Mayank, I go first, or you
Please.
would like to go first? Can I just say that I know we are talking about HR, but can we think a bit broader? What makes a good leader, right? Because you can be, let's say, working for HR today. Tomorrow you might be working for another part of the business, and you might be working in finance, you might be working in sales, you might be working in operations, right? All these areas and all the leaders are business leaders. And I think this is a very important thing to have in mind. A HR leader is not detached from being a business leader. And that is one of the points that I'd like to make. The more you learn about the business that you're in, the more you learn about what is important for the business and how this business impacts the community, this business impacts the lives of people, the more rounded you're going to be as a leader. So know the business very well. The other one is know the people. And again, I've worked with incredibly competent leaders who are people leaders and not necessarily are in HR. I've worked with, let's say, one area that would stand out immediately in people's minds is finance, right? So finance only deals with numbers and HR only deals with people. But you know what? I have, as a matter of fact, a blog series in partnership with the CFO here for APJ that we posted, I think a couple of years ago when we were partnering more closely together. And there is not such a thing as, this group only thinks of that and this group only thinks of that. So you have to be able to be a people leader, regardless where you are. So you know the business, you know the people. And obviously, you know what's happening around you in the world, what is important to the world, what are the trends, right, that we discussed about earlier. You understand where we are going through and towards. How do we know? There are several ways. I mean, it can go from assessments to results of surveys that we conduct internally, whether they are real time or whether they are on an annual basis. Each organization does have its own way of measuring the sentiments, and we do that on a regular basis here in SAP. So assessments, surveys, we can also know through practice by observation, right? And it's another way that it's very powerful. So how do we get there? Again, as I mentioned before, I don't want to be repetitive, but it is by preparing ourselves and taking the risk, taking the step forward. And I think this group has a tremendous potential to do that and to lead the way. So it just in closing, in a closing comments here, I do wish all of you a very, very successful journey ahead. And I do believe that this group here has a tremendous potential and a blank canvas in front to be able to impact lives and impact the way that we treat our communities and help everyone thrive.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Renata. I couldn't have added to that. I think HR is so important in any organization. It's it took COVID for many business leaders to realize this, but here we are, and this is not going to go away. I think the importance of HR, the importance of people that within organizations, how we develop them, how we engage them, provide them the psychological safety, physical safety now, and provide them with the developmental opportunities to realize their potential. It is about HR. And so every organization will need good HR leaders, and we need to kind of constantly try to kind of get the talents that we need in HR. Certainly, I think organizations like SAP are doing a lot of that. So thank you, SAP, for flying the HR flag for us. And also then we will need the HR leaders themselves to exemplify some of those competencies, to lead by example, to provide the inspiration to the community. So I think this is certainly an opportunity for HR with the events in the past few months. It's an opportunity for HR to rise above the fray and provide the leadership that the organization requires at this critical time.
Thank you very much, Renata and Mayam, for answering the questions from the floor. We apologize if we did not get to answer everyone's questions today. However, we will be collating your questions and we will pass it amongst the panelists, and we'll send you a PDF of those questions once we have them. So we have come to the end of our webinar. So for any other additional questions, you can always write to us at certifiedassociate@ihrp.sg, and you can also add us on social media. We hope that this session was very insightful for you and you have learned a thing or two about the evolution of HR professional. We do look forward to you coming to our upcoming events, which will be updated through our social media channels as well as our website. After today's session, we hope that all of you aspiring HR professionals out there will be driven to become part of our community. Should you have any other questions about how to get certified, you can drop us an email or you can drop us a DM on our social media as well. Do note that a copy of the slides will be sent to all attendees in a PDF document. And if you have any other questions, you can drop us a Q&A. I'll still be here till the end, till everybody leaves the webinar. And thank you and have a nice day, everyone.